everyone, Diane here, welcome to my studio. I'm going to paint some poppies today in a loose and easy style that I hope you'll enjoy. As I have been doing recently, I'm going to be painting on Meaden watercolour paper, 100% cotton, 140 pound, and this is a cold press pad, which most of you will probably have cold press paper. Any paper will do, even if it's not 100% cotton, it doesn't matter. For those of you who are beginners, you might not want to lash out on cotton paper. If you want to get the best though that you can for the lowest price, Meaden have got a very good range. And if you go to meadenart.com on the internet, and when you get to checkout, you can put in Diane 10 and you'll get an extra 10% discount on anything you buy on their site, which is handy. And they've also got a sale on. They've usually got reductions, and that 10% comes off on top of the other reduction, so that's good. Talking about Meaden, while I am talking about them, the one I'm using today is the same size, 5x7, but I've chosen to use a rough paper here just because that's what came first to hand, but it's not much different from the cold, so it won't make a difference to the end result. I'm also going to use a couple of their palettes. This is one of their square palettes. It's got eight sections in it, and you can put the colours that you're going to use out in there, and then you can use a separate mixing tray. I've got this one here, which is, I don't know what size that is. Let me just look and tell you. Can't remember. I think it's about 7 inches, 6.5 by 10. And this palette here is 7 square. So this is just one way of doing it. You can use any kind of palette to do this work in, but I thought I'd show you those two today because they are nice. It's nice to have a China palette to mix on because it doesn't bead up like it does on plastic. So that's good. And I'm going to use paints. Let's go to the paint now, and we're going to use Quark. Now, a lot of people have been, well, not a lot, one or two people have said, oh, I do wish you would paint with something else other than the Kiritaki paints, because I used to enjoy the paintings that you did using other kinds of paint. And it's funny, really, because I was intending to do more with other kinds of paints in the coming year, 2024, good gracious me. So that kind of fits in with what I had in mind. And this morning I thought I'd paint some poppies because I just happened to see on my desk a little palette here that I've been using with the core colours in, and I thought, oh yes, they've got some very nice reds. And if you buy the set, the starter set has got 2 reds. It's got alizarin crimson. It's got pyrrole red, which is more like a scarlet. It's got Zen, stop barking at the cat. It's got Hansa yellow light, which is like a lemon yellow, so acidic. And then as a second yellow, I don't know why they did this, but it's interesting. They've got burnt sienna, which is neither yellow nor red. It's somewhere in between. That's more of a kind of orangey colour, so a warm yellow compared to this cool yellow. And then we've got ultramarine blue and phthalo blue. Now, for the poppies, we don't need much in the way of yellow. As you can see here, all I used the yellow for was to mix with blue with a little bit of red or brown to give me the greens. So this is what they call a split primary set. And what it means is the three primary colours are red, yellow and blue, right? So this is red, this is alizarin crimson, and it is a cool red because it tends to be blue. And then you've got pyrrole red light, which is tending towards yellow, so it's more orange. So that's a hot red, a warm red. So you've got your 2 reds, one cool and one warm. And then for the blues in a split primary set, you have your phthalo blue, which is tending to the green, and that is a cool colour, so that goes with the cool red. And then you've got the warm blue, which is the ultramarine, which tends to be towards the reddish side of blue, so that's a warm one, and that goes with the warm red. And then you've got your cool yellow that I mentioned earlier, the Hansa yellow, which is lemonish, so it's more acidic and more kind of greenish. And then normally you would have a warm yellow there, something more like this colour, which could be cadmium yellow, for example, and that would be your warm yellow, and that would give you a complete split primary set. So what we're using today is split primaries, but without the warm yellow. We've got burnt sienna, which is what came in that set, and I don't know why. So if you were to order that set, you might want to order in addition a separate tube of cadmium yellow, for example, to go with it. Also, if you were going to start on your painting career with the Core starter set, you would probably want a violet. And this is focus, yes, focus, children. This is quinacridone violet, which is quinacridone purple. This one's from Schminker. Daniel Smith, Winsor & Newton, they all do it as well. Quinacridone is a nice clear, synthetic, transparent, bright, good mixing purple, which is handy for things like backgrounds like this where I've done some mauve, and that's what I used that for. I only used it in the background. Okay, so we've done paper, we've done paint, we've done palettes, brushes. Today, all I used when I did this trial one this morning was a Drawwell brush. This is a Maestro. You can get these ones from Japan direct if you want. The information about Drawwell is in the description below the video. For this, I didn't choose to use one of my brushes. You know, we've got this Craftmo set, which is very, very nice. For the set that I chose to do with Craftmo, I decided to pick and to design larger brushes for slightly more, more expressive, looser, larger paintings. And so for something like this, which is relatively delicate, we don't as yet have a paintbrush in there in that set that I would opt for, although you could, at a pinch, in fact, actually, it wouldn't be a problem at all. You could use this one, which is a size 9. It's just I wanted to go down a size, so I've gone down to a 7. You might also want a tiny brush, a detail brush for any dots that you might put in the center like that, or any details that you decide to put in. Now, the way I went about doing this morning was I winged it, and I just painted direct onto the paper. And what I did was today I painted 3 identical poppies, as you can see, but they're facing in different directions and different amounts of the centers are showing. But the reason I did that was because I haven't painted poppies for ages, and I thought I'll have a little bit of a practice. So that's what I did, and it turned out okay. So I thought I would show you that, and then I thought I'd have a go at doing it again. So I'm going to do that. As usual, I should have recorded it while I was doing it in the first place, but I didn't. I never do. It's silly, but that's the way it is. Right. Okay, so let's put out the paints first before we do anything else. And it doesn't matter what order you put them in, of course. This is the Permanent Alizarin Crimson. That goes there. You should wipe your tube after you've squeezed out the paint. What you should do is you should take a damp tissue and you should just wipe round. This is what they say. This is what men say you should do in the books, so that your cap doesn't stick. But then, of course, the first thing that happens is it's a good idea, but then you paint all over you. So before you can start painting, you have to go and wash your hands. Right, this is the warm red. This is Pyrrole Red Light. I'll put that in here because red is going to be dog hair, the main colour, because it's poppies. You won't need a lot. You don't need as much as that. I put too much out. Can't get it back in the tube. Never mind. When it sits, I'm not going to wipe that because there's too much coming out. It'll keep coming out. That's what paint does. When you've finished with the paint that you use, you can leave it where it is in the palette. It'll dry, a skin on top. Doesn't matter. When you want to start again with it, you just wake it up with a spray of light spray, a spritz of water, and it will soon jump into action. This is the ultramarine blue. Just want a tiny bit of that. I'll be darned if I'm going to wipe my tubes. Okay, and then we've got phthalo blue, which is the other one. Put that there, warm and cool blue. Then we want our lemon yellow, which is Hansa Yellow Light. And then burnt sienna. I don't know if I'm going to use that, but I might, because burnt sienna is quite useful to mix with blue to give you a really dark brown. If you mix that with phthalo blue, for example, you'll get a very dark brown, very close to black, which is what we're going to need for the centres. You notice that the centres do look quite dark, don't they? They look black, but I didn't have any black on my palette. And then quinacridone purple can go in here. Don't know how much of that I'm going to need. Probably nowhere near as much as I've squeezed out. You don't need to wet the paints if they've just come out of the tubes, unlike if they've been sitting for a few days, months or years in my case often. They will activate straight away with a touch of water, but when they've just come out the tube, they're already ready to go. So then I've got my mixing palette here and those there. If you want to be on the safe side, what you might do at this point is get a sketchbook or a scrap page and just try some of the colours out so that you have a rough idea what to expect when you touch them with the brush, if you see what I mean. So I've traced that painting and I've transferred it onto here. There is a video somewhere in our catalogue about doing that and how you can do that. There are different ways. You can use a light box, you can use a window, you can use anything. Just need some paper really and a pencil or two. And I used, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, I used this technique where I drew on tracing paper, I drew over my design, turned it over, at least I should have done, but I didn't. Scribble over the back of the lines with a soft pencil. I used an 8B, and then turn it back over the other way and transfer onto your sheet that you're going to paint on. I forgot to turn it over because I was too busy thinking about something entirely different, feeding the birds. So my second version is going to face the other way. The first lot faced that way, and this lot is going to face that way. So it doesn't matter, does it? So I don't know. Actually, I think probably it would be a good idea if I let you see the original one that I did this morning. At the same time, perhaps you might be able to see it anyway. I don't know whether the camera will oblige. I'll take that out of the frame, put it there, and you can see how much better it looks when it's in a frame. Doesn't look like anything on earth when it's not in a frame. Just looks like a piece of old red and purple paint. But when it's framed, it looks a lot better. I've got a nice big jar of water, clean, and a nice big jar of water for washing my brushes in. So I'm all set really. Just need one brush. And away we go, yes. This is, again, just as I should mention, sorry for those of you who want to get on with the painting, but this is a block, so it's glued all the way around. For each page, you then separate them by sliding a knife into this gap here and then going around the outside to separate each sheet. Right, so we'll pick up a bit of water and we will start with the orangey colour, this one. So just break that into the space there and add a little bit of water so that it's, you know, liquid. And then we're going to leave a bit of a space in the middle for the dark area there. So I'll just put that in, which I forgot to do. And then we're just basically painting the petals. You can give yourself a little bit of a jagged edge at the top of the petals. Poppies have 4 petals, which is something I learned recently. So you're sort of thinking to yourself, okay, that's the one at the back. And then you pick up a little bit more paint. You could add a tiny dab of the other red to that to make that colour just slightly different if you want to. And then you come in with that. And then we've got the poppy shape like that. And so we'll just leave that and move on to the next one. And if your brush has got a nice point at the top of it, when, as I say, you're sort of painting down towards the center like that, and that will give you something of a slightly jagged, not exactly jagged, but slightly lacy top edge, which is quite attractive, but you don't want that all over. You never want anything all over when you're doing a painting. It's best to vary, change your colour every time you refill your brush. Someone said to me once when I was learning to paint, I think it might have been Roland Hilder in his book. He didn't say it to me personally. I don't know, can't remember who it was, but whoever it was, it might have also been David Bellamy, who says that in his book possibly, or Ron Ranson. Any of them would have agreed that every time you refill your brush with paint, if you're doing watercolour, if you're doing pure watercolour, not modern watercolour, if you're doing pure watercolour, that's the difference, you see, guys. The Kuretake, being Japanese and everything, is more suited to things like manga and all those sorts of Japanese kinds of stuff, and cartooning and all those sorts of things. So that's one of the reasons why it's so good for the camera. It shows up really well, but this is coming along quite nicely. Now I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to do this slightly different to what I did before. I was in a big hurry before, so I painted straight into it, but I'm going to rinse off my brush in my dirty water. It's not dirty, it's just coloured with paint. I always feel a bit strange when people say that their dishes are dirty, that they've just eaten off. It seems like there ought to be another word, because it's not really dirty, is it? Because if it was dirty, that means you've been eating dirt. So your dishes aren't dirty, they just need to go in the dishwasher. So they're used, if nothing else. Anyway, that's just one of those things. Now I need to mix some green for the buds and for the dry seed head. So I'm going to take some phthalo blue. I'm going to put it here, and the reason for putting it there and not doing it here is because that is a very intense colour, and as you know, core colours are like, wow, man, powerful. And I'm going to try mixing a green using burnt sienna and see, yes, I thought it might. So that's why they put that burnt sienna in there, because that burnt sienna with phthalo blue gives you a lovely, green. So look at that. Yes, ideal for what we want, and how simple. Oh, yes, excellent. I'm excited about that. So there we are. We're painting the stem. You can pump in a little extra paint as you come down if you want to. And we're not painting anything complete. We're just keeping it loose. And we have a little bit more for the brown to fill up our brush, changing the colour. Like I said, every time you refill your brush, you should change the colour slightly, unless you're painting something modern, which we do too on here. All right, okay, now I'm painting the stem of a bud, and I'm just putting in the bud shape, and then coming back for a little bit more green. So I'm very excited about that colour combination that you get there. That's brilliant. I've suddenly become a massive convert of core burnt sienna. Okay, so then over here we want a bit more brown, because this is the seed head, so we'll stick a bit more brown in there, and then we'll do the seed head like that. And then what I did before, and I'll do it again, To give texture when you're painting these things, you can take a tissue, which is a bit better than a piece of paper towel because it doesn't imprint a pattern, and you can just dab out a little bit of the colour so you get a bit more colour variety. Then you might want to pick up a bit more blue, make that a little bit darker, a bit more shadowy underneath the bit on the top there where the seed head is, and then for the seed heads you're going to come out the bottom, not out of the top like these. And then we'll just pop a little bit, pick up a bit more paint, changing your colour again, putting a bit more green there, and then a little bit of shadow down the side of the stem. It doesn't matter if this has a kind of greenish shadow, a little bit more brown added in there to make that another shade of green. And I like it when my hand shakes a little bit, or I make it shake a little bit, because then you get a nice loose effect. Okie doke, so I'll just wash off my brush. I always wipe my brush, before I rinse it, I always wipe the paint off on this old piece of towel, and then I rinse it in the rinse water, and then wipe it again on the towel, and then I pick up some clean water from my clean thing. I tell you what, I'll show you. This is what I've got at the moment. I've been painting for 10 minutes or something. This is my rinse water. This is my painting water, and I have this towel. So when I have been painting and I want to change colours completely, what I do is I wipe off the majority of the paint onto this towel, then I rinse it in the rinse water, wipe off on the edge of the container a little bit, then wipe on the towel quickly, and then pick up clean water from my fresh reservoir. That's what I do. And there are different ways of doing this. Some people don't wipe their brush before they put it into their rinse water, but then their rinse water gets dirty very fast. This is one way of avoiding that. Okay, so let's put a little bit of shadow now into our poppies, because they're probably dry. And so I'm going to pick up a little bit of alizarin crimson and mix that with a little bit of the Pyrrole red to start with, and we'll see where that brings us. And then I'm just going to irregularly put in some shadows. You don't need to be too precise. It's quite a nice pink, actually, that quinacridone red colour, alizarin rather. It's it looks like it. Oops, looks like it would make a good pink for flowers. Okay, so that's that. And then I won't bother to wash my. Oh, wait a minute! I tell you what. I'll pick up a little bit more red because I want to put in the buds. So I'll just paint those in like that. And then, as I said, I won't bother to wash my brush because I'm going to try and mix some a dark colour. So I'm going to pick up some of the brown and then some of the phthalo blue, mix that together, and don't use too much water, and then you will find that you have got something which is very close to black. And then we're going to use dry brush technique to paint in the centre of these poppies. Just very little water, just painting in like that. And make the bottom edge a little bit uneven so that it looks as if there's a gap in the petal where you can see through. So that's very easy. You can use a little bit of black on the pepper shaker or salt shaker or whatever they call it to just give that bit more emphasis. And you can put a little bit here on the bud if you want. You can put a little bit under here if you want to increase the shadows. Come down where all these things are coming from. A bit here too, perhaps to increase the shadow. And there. Right, so wipe off the brush on my towel, rinse in the rinse water and dry a little bit and pick up some more. And then now the next thing to do is to go to the mauve, purple, any purple will do for this. And what we're going to do is you're going to be really brave and you're just going to bring the purple in and you're going to drop it all over the place at random, really, just filling in the background. One of the things that a lot of people are is afraid of backgrounds. They don't want to spoil that nice white paper, but quite often you find that doing this is a benefit. The painting says, oh, thank goodness I can breathe now. I'm not surrounded by all that inhibiting white. And we're going to, after we've basically quickly dashed this in, varying it as much as possible. You can, obviously, if you want, you can do it as up to the edges and you can do it very carefully, but that's a different look. And what we're aiming for here is a loose look. So I'm just now picking up my green and I'm going to add that in places all around, all over the place, and call those hint of leaf, right? Hint of leaf. We're just hinting at the leaves because life's too short to paint poppy leaves. Have you looked at a poppy leaf lately? Okay, so that's that. Now, another thing you can do at this point, if you want to, is you could pick up some water and you can do some spatter. And the colour that you choose to do some spatter would be entirely up to you. And where it lands on wet paint, you're going to get a indication of distant poppies, you know, a little bit of red going on there. Or you could take a fine detail brush like this and you could convince it that it wanted to paint in black, and you could paint a few dots up there for the seeds coming out of the poppy heads, and you could also come in again with that colour and make the centres darker. And one thing, actually, having done that, is you might want to use white with a little bit of yellow to do the very centre of the flower, which is usually lighter. This is gouache. You could use P.H. Martin's white gouache, or you could use this one, which is by a company whose name I can't remember. Tarlans, that's it, Tarlans. So we'll just pop that in there, pick up a tiny bit of yellow from this reservoir there, mix that together, we get a very pale yellow, and we'll just pop a little bit of that, it's a bit more white, pop a little bit of that in the middle there. Just press down into the heel of the brush to give you your shape there. Okay, and then Bob's looking like your uncle again. All sorts of millions and trillions of things that you could do to make that more detailed if you wanted to. We can, excuse me, I'll go back to my other brush. We could mix up a little bit more green and take that phthalo blue and a little bit of burnt sienna. Quite surprised at the colour that that makes, actually. And when that's really dark, that turns into amazing black. So the paper is still a little bit damp, so my leaves that I'm putting in here. If you want a brighter green, I'm not going to add brighter green, but I'm going to show you, if you want, from this set, you can make a bright green by going to the Hansa yellow and then to either the ultramarine or the phthalo blue. This is ultramarine, and if you mix that, you'll get a nice bright green. And some people would prefer that, you know. You can get a different look if you use that for your leaves, so that's entirely up to you. I think sometimes Poppies have what you might call bits, I don't know what you'd call them, you know, these things coming up here, stamens, whatever. So we put those in with a marker pen. This is a Staedtler pigment liner. The paint's still a bit damp, so it's a little bit fuzzy, but that doesn't matter because nature is fuzzy. So there we are. When that's completely dry, you can do line work on it and, you know, make it into a different painting. I might do that on this one. Maybe I will, actually. Since I've got it here, we'll put that one over there, and maybe I will carry on working on this one with this pen, which gives me a chance to talk about Christmas. Yes, did everybody have a nice Christmas? We did, yes, except that yesterday morning when I woke up, I felt fine. And then all of a sudden, I started to see lights. I think they sometimes call it an aura in my visual field. And before I knew where I was, I had a bit of a migraine. But luckily, we had our homeopathic remedies handy. And I took my homeopathy, and after not too long, it stopped, and I was able to carry on with the day in the normal way. But I realised I'm sensitive to a lot of things, and one of the things I'm sensitive to is sulfites. And I realised yesterday that I've just made my last traditional Christmas cake, because in, you know, the English Christmas cake, which got dried fruit in it. It's hard to buy dried fruit now with no sulfites in, and it gives me a headache, clearly. So next year I'm going to get or before next year, well, yes, it will be next year, won't it? I'm going to get a dehydrator, and I'm going to make my own dried fruit without sulfites. You can see what I'm doing, can't you? You don't need me to tell you. I'm just going around the outside of the petals, emphasising the shapes a little bit. It won't be too disastrous if it doesn't work. I might want to put a little bit more red in there, actually, because I've got two of them, you see. So, and then, oh yes, Christmas, yes. So we had a massive big pile of Christmas presents under the Christmas tree. It takes us until this morning to get through them. There's just the three of us, but we buy each other small presents. We don't buy anything big. We buy lots and lots of small things, because I like opening parcels, don't you? And so anyway, what we do is we get them out from under the tree, and we put them in piles in front of each of us, and then we open them one at a time. Each person who opens a present has to open it, and everybody else watches. We've done this for 50 years. I don't know if you have that. I hate it when everyone just rips all their presents open. That's what you do when you're a child, but we've gone past that. So we savour the moment, right? And so my first parcel was a big one from my husband. And last year, he made the prize boo-boo that men sometimes, he bought me something for the kitchen. He bought me a set of knives. Now, I have this superstition about knives. I don't think you should ever give anyone a knife. I think it's bad luck. He bought me a set of knives from Germany. I think they were, I can't remember the name of the make. They cost €700, and I don't need them because I've already got the exact same set. So he bought them, and I had a complete meltdown. But no, I didn't actually. I did inside, but I didn't show it. I tried to be appreciative. It's very hard because I'm not a very good liar. Anyway, so we got past it, and I said, okay, I'll give them a try. We'll see how they'll go. I'm sure they'll be fine. And as I took them out of the box, I cut myself. Because I said to him, they're not very safe, these things. They're terribly long and sharp and big and awful. So before I'd even started to use the first of these massive knives, I managed, not badly, but I did cut myself. So I said, this is not looking good. So then we put them in the knife block, and the first day I went to use them, I got them out, and as I took the first knife out of the knife block, I cut myself. I hadn't even used it. So I cut myself getting it out of the box. I cut myself getting it out of the knife block. And I said, this is really not looking good, dear. I'm a bit worried about this. And then a couple of days later, I was using them, and I realized that I was out of control because they're so big and I'm not very tall. And next thing I knew, I'd cut myself. Only this time I cut myself a little more badly. So I put them back in their box and we sent them back to Amazon and got a refund. And so that was the end of that. A disaster. So this year, as I came to unwrap my first parcel, I said to him, well, at least I know you aren't giving me knives this year. And his face kind of fell. And I thought, I don't believe this. And yes, he had. He'd bought another set of knives. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't believe this. So, and I just got over my migraine as well. So I felt really picked on at that moment. Anyway, we came to a solution on that one, and I gifted them to him. And he's now got a nice set of knives of his own to use when he works in the utility room on his dog meat cutting. And he did come up with a couple of really nice things, a couple of things for the studio. And I'm wearing at the moment, as you can see, a black jumper which he bought me, which fits perfectly. So that's all good. But that was just hilarious. At least I know I'm not getting knives again. Oh, I think I've made a bad mistake. They only came from Lidl, he said. I got them from Lidl. They were very, very cheap, and I needed them myself. So I said, well, you can have them then. Yes. Life in our family can be quite funny sometimes. My husband's Egyptian. And, yeah, well, you know, culture. So here we are then. That's finished. So we now have 2 paintings of 3 poppies. This is the one I did earlier, and this is the second version. This is pure watercolour. This is watercolour with line work. You can tell me in the comments below which one you prefer. I think it's quite interesting to see how different they are once they've got line work on. You could come into this and do a little bit more paint work as well if you wanted to, but let's see how they look in their frame. This is not ideal, this mat. It's a little bit too small, but you can see that doesn't look too bad, does it? And then this one is the one we've just done, and that's different, but also I'm quite pleased with those. Aren't you? I like these paints. I heartily recommend them. We'll put the link in the description below to the core paints. I've had them 2 years, and this is the first time I've actually been happy with what I've produced by using them. I think I was a little bit intimidated by them because people told me that they reacted much more enthusiastically to water than ordinary paints do. But to be quite honest, I haven't found that with this. And I think it's very, very, very interesting to see that you get such a nice, subtle green when you mix, and green and brown when you mix the raw burnt sienna with the phthalo blue. That is very, very helpful. And there's granulation going on in there as well. That is lovely. And if you'd like to purchase this little poppy painting, just pop over to our Etsy shop, which is new, at Diane Antone Studio, and you'll find it listed there with others, and also our bookmarks and lots of digital downloads of sketches and so on and so forth, and other cool things. So why not check it out? There's a link in the description below. So I'll say bye-bye for now, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.